This episode of Capes and Lunatics is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. Get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Me hearties, and welcome once again to Full Stream Ahead. I am your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me as always is me skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Hey, Mozzie. Welcome back to Full Stream Ahead. Tonight's episode, The Mandalorian, Season 2, Episode 7, the penultimate episode. Take a drink. Chapter 15, The Believer. To move against the Empire, the Mandalorian needs the help of an old enemy. Rick Famuyiwa is our director. Our writers this week are, of course, Rick Famuyiwa. Sorry, Rick, you need to tell IMDb to put a pronunciation next to your name. John Favreau, because he is French. And, of course, Rick gets the written by, John gets the created by, and, of course, George Lucas gets the based on Star Wars by. Okay, so this is... You know, like I said, I've said this before, that it was sort of the first one was the Magnificent Seven. This is kind of this is our Dirty Dozen episode. Although, for a Dirty Dozen episode, very few people die horribly. Yeah. So that's good.
Well, unless you count, like, everybody on that base at the end.
Well, yeah. But
like, no individual death and no non-stormtrooper deaths, because they die.
Yeah, but to be fair, if nothing else, it wraps it all back up. And man, there's actually an interesting aspect in that, which is this idea of there is so much to unpack in this episode.
Right. It's just so I can get it out there. It's my favorite episode by far so far.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's always hard for me to ever pick a favorite because it's, even as a fan, it's like picking one of your kids, It's like, because I like this and this, and I like that and that, and this one really hits this part of me, and but that one, that's that part of me,
For me, it becomes easier because, like, I'm just waking up to Star Wars now. I was never really a big fan back then, and I'm a huge Bill Burr fan. And the fact that, not only that he was in it, but that he used the opportunity well. He acted well. The character was written well for him, and it all came together, and it made sense for the story, and, you were glad that he was a part of it.
Yeah, well, we have not seen the last of him.
Right. And they used him as a vehicle to have that conversation. Is the Empire the same as the New Republic and blah, blah, blah. The point he makes is like, somebody's got to be controlling somebody's. If you're over there, you're part of them. If you're here, you're part of him.
Oh.
And that's a conversation.
That was your take. Your take.
Right.
I took the exact opposite.
Oh, how interesting. So if I may. So by having him have that conversation, and he is forced to answer that question, we have the luxury to pontificate about it and have conversations about it. In that moment, he had to make a decision. Does he believe what he was just saying? Or does he, in that moment, realize, okay, this is a little bit worse than just people, ruling people. This is a little bit worse.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And that's the point. I've been having that conversation with myself throughout this whole thing. It's like, are they trying to say that, one oppressor is the same as the other oppressor? And then that forces us to have that conversation and have resolution to it by saying, no, they're quite a bit worse.
And to be fair, the real debate of the entire series isn't, and this is the conceit of Star Wars. It's not, is one oppressor worse than another oppressor? Mm. It's that, is someone an oppressor and someone asking you to come along and isn't actively trying to oppress you? Right. That's the thing. This is, I mean, not to get too political, but this is essentially, what you get when you get into the whole, all the political parties are exactly the same. But it's like, well, no, one political party is saying people shouldn't vote, and one political party is saying people should. Maybe you agree that some people shouldn't vote, and to be fair, a lot of people think that. And,
but to that level, you're right. That's a hard argument to find any nuance in.
Exactly. And then the other person says, look, I don't know if everyone should vote. I don't know if they're going to make the right decisions. After all, as we saw in episode 3, this is how the Republic falls, to thunderous applause, And that is always the counter argument of, ironically, the Empire. That if we just let everybody vote, they're gonna vote in oppressors like us. At
least with us, you don't have the hope of something better. You're comfortable with your station.
Yeah, exactly. You're under the oppressive empire. You're a serf, and you're willing to work within you're willing to swim within the mud you've been given.
Right. I'm going to oppress you, but I'll never lie to you about it.
Exactly. And as we have seen historically, there are many people that are like, you know what? No, I'd prefer not to be lied to. And to be fair, my mom, who was a diehard Republican, always said, here's what I'll tell you. Everyone says, taxes are going to go up. They're going to lower taxes, but, the only people who ever do are the Republicans. And that was actually only true in the 80s because they lowered taxes in order to restructure taxes so that taxes got lower across the board, but mostly at the top. So it was sort of one of those kind of things. That's sort of the convolution of the argument is that, you still got to actually do the job of running a government, and, it is what it is. But we're not talking about real world politics. We're talking about fun fictional politics.
Right.
And in this episode, so for those of you who haven't watched it, remember Mayfield? We saw him at the end of the last episode because, of course, Darian Jin, or Din Djarin, I always get that mixed up, Din Djarin needs the assistance of an Imperial to access information on how to find Moff Gideon's ship. And the only Imperial he knows is the one he just put in prison. Which is kind of fun because it's almost like a, 48 hours kind of situation here, where you've got to get that, you need the criminal to help you solve the crime.
Mm.
So we're going to get him out of jail, we're going to work together, and this is one of the things that is great about this, because I never even realized that until just now, that, that's kind of like 48 hours, where you have to get the prisoner out of jail to help you solve the crime. Right. Which is a trope. I mean, you get the same thing in Midnight Run even at the end with this, which is like, you know what? I did what I said I was going to do, and we're just going to say we're going to call it a quint. We're going to call it quints at the end. He gets Mayfield out because he needs someone that can access them. And of course, because now that she picked up the badge, which, man, I'm sorry, the New Republic needs a bureaucracy. There needs to be an N27-3 form that someone needs to sign to get a badge.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, everyone says you're relatively respectable. You used to be a soldier. Have a badge.
Right.
And with this, have all access to everything in the New Republic.
Right.
Maybe, it's like, wow, good thing she was trustworthy. I get it.
Maybe there was a scene beforehand where she had to sweet talk the warden. Yeah, we didn't get.
Yeah.
And the droid was given orders. So so I don't know.
Oh yeah. Well, then, by the way, can I just say I love the use of droids in this. Well, in that first scene, because there is this. It goes to that question about the sentience of droids and how far their sentience goes. And this was actually something I realized. I'm going to get into this a bit more next episode, but I get the feeling astromech droids actually have organic parts.
Which droids are these?
Astromechs. Those are the R2 and R5 units.
You think they have organic parts in them?
I think they have an organic part in them.
Wow.
Because I actually think there's a thing that's implied in the next episode that I realized that, that's what they're suggesting there about because, it goes into this idea of basically why you needed Baby Yoda, why you need Grogu for genetic material if all you actually wanted to do was build robots.
Well, I thought that was just a side project. That was just the...
No, it's connected. It's connected, and I think that Favreau's writing some interesting, deep lore.
Interesting.
Most likely with Lucas's approval, because I think that this is the kind of pitch that if you made to Lucas, Lucas is going to go, yeah, cool, I can see that. That's the thing with Lucas. I actually think Lucas, he says he has these big plans, but they're always very loose. And if someone else does a story go around with him, and you give him a good pitch, I think he's going to be like, yeah, totally, yeah, I can totally see that. Which is the mark of a good writer, of a person who wants to make something that lasts ages, is they are willing to say, yeah, okay, let's listen to the fans, let's listen to what everyone else says, let's take the best parts, and let's make something good. But anyway, in this moment we have some very, very, as Tristan would tell me right now, I'm being racist, some clankery droids. I don't know. Clanker is what they call the droids in the Clone Wars storyline, because they are, they're robots and they are very much inorganic and very structured in how they behave. So my take on the guard robots is that they're designed to be the least humanoid of all the robots. That they are put there to essentially follow orders, so that there's no nuance to their interactions. It's like, they're like Ed 209. You have 5 seconds to comply. You have 4 seconds to comply, and that is the structure that they're based on. Now, we've seen many other droids that are not like that have much more complex programming. But I think that when it comes to the idea of a guard robot, you want them to have no subtlety.
So like C-3PO was it? No, R2-D2 was a guard robot?
No, R2-D2 was not.
Oh, okay.
R2-D2 was an astromech.
Right. So then, but you're saying the guard robots are not humanoid?
They're not. No, the guard robot we see, the guard droid we see, has no. They only responded. They almost sound like a tiny Rexman, where they have pre-recorded words, no influxation, and I don't think they are. I think they're designed to not have that deeper inner life. I think this gets to the essential problem with basic robot rebellion questions, which is that when you have, it's like you can make a robot that doesn't know it's aware. You can make a robot that you can make an artificially intelligent robot that can do a lot of things, but just knows to do its things. And it can adapt in the sense of, this is how I deal with this thing and this is how I deal with that thing. And to be fair, that's sort of what people wanted with that, with the ultimate robot Death Trooper, as we'll see in the next episode. But, oh, Tristan, yeah, okay. Tristan, what is your question? Loudly.
I don't think robots can feel pain, but I think you do that by giving them a program where, let's say, if you yell at them, they feel negative emotions.
Well, yeah, that's the idea, and it's about how complex you want to program that negative feeling. And because, for what it's worth, that is the sensory observation, is that do you want to make the robot or the droid, because they're not robots, they're droids, how much do you want the droid to interact in it with its environment and be affected by its environment. And the thing about a prison guard robot is you don't want him to really be affected by his environment at all.
Mm-hmm.
You want him to basically be able to see a being, know that is being, 11793224, and make sure 1975324 does the thing that 1975324 is supposed to do, and, hopefully not die while it's doing it. That is the goal of that guard robot. So that guard robot doesn't question anything. So when our jumper shows up, it's just like, okay, these are the orders. You are going over here. This is what we're doing. There's no debate. There's no questioning. There's no, why do you want this guy? As we see when Mayfield comes along, it's like, well, what do I get? So I do this and I go free. It's like, no, you get a better view.
But
and yeah,
he's been pretty terrible, right?
That's the thing. And of course, within this, this is where we get the idea of what we're really talking about. Because of course we go to the other planet, and I found it interesting because condensing of some plot lines here. They go there. They have this very unstable thing they have to transport, which again is a great little classic trope. I actually just saw it on Have Gun Will Travel it the other day, where basically you have to travel a highly volatile substance across a rough terrain to another place and not have it blow up before it gets there. You do this with nitroglycerin. There's a great Bogart movie about that. I forget what it's called, but yeah, basically it's the idea, and it's your classic suspense. Right. So, although that's just done for a small bit of this, but it is what we're getting at here. Basically, this planet has been chosen for Imperial domination because it has this element.
Iridium or something like that?
It was, yeah. I don't think it was a real element.
Right, but I'm just what they called it.
Yeah. It was. They called it something that explosive MacGuffinium.
Is an element?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. For maybe it wasn't.
Yeah. Iridium is actually an element. Yeah. So I don't think they said it was iridium. I'm sure they said it was like or radium or something like that.
Yeah.
But basically it's meant to give, and iridium, for what it's worth, I'm sure is somewhat volatile, as is radium. I'm sure it was a word that was chosen so that it would sound to your ear like, yeah, that does sound like a dangerous stuff you're pulling out of the ground there. Like
unobtainium.
Yes. No, unobtainium sounds like up to daisium, quite frankly.
Right, exactly. It's ridiculous. I can't believe they went with that. It's insane.
Yeah, I didn't write that film. I didn't write any of these films. But in this one, so that's the idea. So they realize that they basically are hauling these trucks into the base for processing. They realize they have to get into the base. Mayfield, of course, is going to go on it. But then he basically says, listen, the jumper can't go because they're going to scan you once you're in there. And if you show up on a Republic database, they're going to know who you are. And, because it's run by basically the KGB of the Empire. And
they're just trying to see if you have a record.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, if you have a record with the Empire or you have a record with the New Republic, Right. And obviously, if you were in the rebellion, you're gonna flash, Right. And she was in the rebellion, so you actually have this thing, and of course, I love that. I love Boba Fett's thing. Is like, yeah, I think they might let's just say they might recognize my face.
Right. They might have seen it before.
Hey, it is what it is. So Mando has to do it. And it's like, he says he'll do it because he realizes he can put on the other guy's armor and then he doesn't have to show his face. But this leads to that basic thing with that Mayfield is saying throughout the episode, which is like, it seems everyone has a line until they have to cross it. And here's the thing. This is set up as a classic "we're not so different, you and I" kind of trope, which is usually what the villain says to the hero, which
it's I don't know, it's pitched more as the person who's been through it and been broken by it, and at a certain stage in your life, you get to the point where you question the beliefs you held most dear. And it seems like Din Djarin has not reached that place. And this is simply somebody who's been through that place, reaching out saying, hey, listen, I mean, I know you're going to get to this, realization eventually, because I see it happening right now. Look at you. You're dressed like a stormtrooper. You said you can't take off. So really question yourself. Is it really because you can't show your face or your helmet? He's asking him to ask these interesting questions as someone who's had to ask himself those questions. And he's seeing that, that his facade is breaking. And he just wants to help him prepare for it because he's a nice guy.
Well, but see, the thing is, and this is what I'm going to say, I think where the failure in that argument comes isn't that here's the thing. And this is something I think about a lot of really good stories, is that our main character isn't really the main character. And really, this is Mayfield's story. Right. And this is Mayfield. And so when Mayfield says, oh, yeah, everyone has a line they won't cross until it comes time to cross it, what it really is about is Mayfield sort of foreshadowing the realization that he has to cross a line he felt he would never cross. He has to essentially join the rebellion. I don't think he recognizes
that he has to do it just yet.
No, not yet. Not yet. But right. This is the foreshadowing. This is where, so essentially, he's trying to make Mando see, we're not so different. We all have these big ideas until we have to do what we want to do. And what the real depth of it is that, the Mandalorian is doing that. Din Djarin is doing that. Or Din Djarin. Din Djarin is doing that. He is coming to understand his understanding of the world is different than it should be. But this is Mayfield's story. Mayfield is the guy he's the cynic. Right. Who says, you kids, you don't know what it's like. I was there. I did this. I did that. But then it comes down to this basic thing where, and it's an interesting parallel when you get to his old commander, because that's the big reveal is like he realizes that his old commander, whose name I'm forgetting,
Willis, something like that.
It was a very Nazi sounding name.
I feel like
Valen Hess, played by the fantastic Richard Brake, excellent character actor, Valen Hess. So, or the villainous Nazi is what his name was meant to be.
Right. It's pretty much an anagram for it.
Yes, Hess,
and in that moment, like, he has to decide to cross a line that he thought was a core principle of his being. I don't make waves. I, do the things in order to survive. I don't put my life on the line for silly things. I'm looking out for my self-interests. Nothing is bigger than me surviving. There's no bigger ideal, morality, whatever. And in that moment, he has to cross that line. But he's already comfortable with that because he knows that's the kind of person he's comfortable shifting his lines. And that was the whole point he's been trying to make. Lines are always...
But no. The real line he crosses is at the very end.
That's what I mean.
No, when he blows up the base.
Oh, interesting.
Because what he just did is murdered 10,000 guys just like him.
10,000 I did not even think about that, but...
Yeah. He just every soldier that was just a guy like him, just another mook in a stormtrooper suit.
Right.
And you establish it. And this is the thing
Valen Hess did.
Exactly. He killed him for the glory of the Empire, or just because the Empire can't be allowed to rise again.
No, but yeah.
That's the thing. That's the idea. It's like, I was cool with you guys until you said it out loud. And this goes back to that thing I always say about The Boys, you know? When Stormfront says, "Oh, people just don't like the word Nazi," it's like, yes, because we know what Nazis are. Once you actually say, "Well, all we want to do is be Nazis," then everyone goes, "Oh, wait, I know that from history class. I remember that. Those are the bad guys. No, we don't want that."
And it's only a delaying of the same eventual outcome, because eventually you'll ruin another word, and then you'll have to find a new word to hide behind, and then you'll ruin that word.
But the fact of the matter, well, first off, I don't think that. Here's the thing: I don't think those words really get ruined as easily as people say.
No, but you can't use Nazi in any other term but bad these days. My point is, whatever
you should
alt-right or whatever they want to call themselves, eventually that will become the name you can't say, because at the heart of it, you're bad. So the name really doesn't. You can hide behind a different facade every time, but eventually that will fall too. So
Yeah, exactly. Well, because it gets down to that point where someone's wants. Here's the thing: evil people want you to know they're essentially evil people don't think they're bad. They want you just to accept that what they want is the right thing. So the last issue of the Doctor Doom comic book came out recently, which is honestly, it's such a great arc, but reminds you why Doctor Doom is literally the worst person to ever exist. Because he literally destroys an entire other universe just because the person of the version of himself in that universe actually was kind and decent.
Huh.
Yeah. And of course, the universe was doing great because he actually used his powers for good. And in order to use his powers for good, he had to not be a murderous sociopathic dictator who said my way or that I am the only one who knows what's right. He had to actually work with other people.
Right, but how does that affect him? Like, what offense did he feel that precipitated this?
Because there was a person who had his face.
But that's it? That's it?
That's literally it. Because Dr. Doom is a horrible, horrible monster.
Yeah, but that doesn't even make any sense. If you can't be that evil unless you're smart, and no smart person would do. There's got to be some good way to use
I think
this opportunity.
Well, here's the thing. There's a lot of... So, you look at something like Hell 9000, or every Robot Apocalypse story. It's super smart because it can do the one thing really good. But it can't do all the other things it needs to do to actually achieve its goal. You know, when you think about something like Skynet, it's like, yeah, and they're still freaking chasing John Connor. That there's still no matter what the Skynet does, it can't stop the rebellion. It can't stop people from just dying. You know, we're like some kind of fungus that just keeps on growing, and you can't kill it. We're the mammalian version of kudzu, and that is the story of Skynet, and that is the story of every smart villain. Is that you're a villain because you can't empathize with human beings.
No, but it's not about empathy. There seem to be so many strategic benefits to having like this universe where there's a good version of you. You don't know what the dynamics of the universe are, if karma's real or whatever. Maybe this guy's keeping you involved. It just seems like there's too many strategic benefits to having this version of you around. That to kill him out of spite is just this.
Because you have empathy, Mozz. That's why you're
emotions. They would never get to rise to the level of power that he's supposed to be at. So it seems like a bad form of storytelling to me.
Well, see, but the thing is, well, first off, it's comic books, so obviously, you know, they're broad stroke morality tales at their core. And the idea, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. If you actually look at historical precedents, you see a lot of guys like Dr. Doom raised to incredible power for a short period of time. Because they usually rise to power.
But their falls are usually led to by complex and interesting situations, not just because, I feel like being a whiny little brat.
I don't know. I actually think that usually is the way they fall apart. You know, it's basically, you know, that's the thing. Here's the thing. I will tell you right now, Trump could have been a 2-term president very easily. Mm-hmm. And all he had to do was not be the worst human being ever. Literally. Like, he actually could have sat there, because he didn't really care about running the country in a certain way. He cared about, lining his pockets, which most good political bosses do. There's nothing wrong with that. But most good political bosses know that if you want to line your pockets, you got to keep a broad base of diverse people happy. And
but
Trump doesn't want to keep other people happy because he doesn't have that empathy that says, you need to be happy. I need to make sure you're happy.
I understand, but that's kind of my point. Like, this is Dr. Doom would have never been a second term. You know what I mean? If he was prone to this sort of emotional, he would never have gotten a second term. How did he get to be
That's
Dr.
why Latveria is not a democracy.
But even then, whether you're dealing with the chaos and the unpredictability of democracy or the chaos of unpredictability of finding power in any structure, there's going to be consequences for things. So, like, if
there's not a regular democratic election, I'm just saying, you will see that people will.
Look at what we have here. Is it easy? No, it's terribly unwieldy.
No. But if you look at Stalin was objectively evil, petty, vain, and destructive on a lot of levels, and basically had to die to get out of office. That is the truth, and it's literally just because
exactly. And he would have never rose to power if he was prone to making dumb decisions like that. That just seems like.
No, because he did rise to power making dumb decisions like that. Everything he did...
It might have been evil, but I don't know if I'd say it was dumb, right? Because he was...
Well, no, but the thing is this isn't his universe he's destroying. It's just a completely other random universe.
It just seems to me that if it's not bothering you, there's certain ways to play it if you're at that level.
Yes, if you're smart. If you're smart and empathetic, if you have
I don't think empathy has anything to do with it. It's just
it is because it's your emotional IQ. It's your EQ, not your IQ. Yeah, if you have a high EQ, you can actually be way more successful in life than if you have a high IQ.
Don't you think he would have had a high EQ to be as
No, because actually, as it turns out, a lot of people with high IQs don't always have a high EQ. Freaking what's his name? Sir Isaac Newton, one of the highest IQs the world has ever known. Completely horrible person. As it turns out, Albert Einstein. Just a real difficult person to have to deal with. Because even though he's the smartest person in the room, if you have to make sure people know you're the smartest person in the room, that means you're probably not that smart.
Either that or these are interpretations by people that weren't smart enough to see what he was talking about, and he was probably frustrated with idiots.
Well, yes, but exactly. But once you here's the thing, you have to suffer fools gladly. People who say, I do not suffer fools gladly, it's like, why? They're fools. Why don't you suffer them? They're just fools. What are they going to do? Be foolish at you? It's like, you say, okay.
Nope.
Would you like some pudding, fool? And the fool will say, yes, I would love pudding. I love pudding. It's delicious. So give the fool his pudding and suffer them gladly. Because if they make your day better, then your day is better. And if you are trying to control the universe, that might be helpful to suffer that fool gladly. Because if Doom had suffered the good Doom from the perfect Marvel universe where everybody's working together and advancing technology and society exponentially, maybe you could have said, hey, you want to help out your bro over here in 616? Yeah, we have a hard time getting along. Everyone always remembers all the bad things I did.
Either that, or he could go and take this trusting guy out and then take over his universe and have a whole new universe to take over of completely unsuspecting populace that think you're this great guy. Imagine how much fun that would have been for somebody in his...
Yeah, but he had a family there. That was the problem, is that guy had a family.
He killed the whole planet. What?
Oh, no. Well, I'm just saying, that's the thing. That would take subtlety. And it was... and the thing
you can't get to be a bad guy at that level making dumb decisions.
About the Mandalorian, but we're having this great time. I don't want to stop. But the thing about this book is, and this is the thing about Dr. Doom in this, it wasn't that this Doom existed. It was that this Doom kept on questioning him. And to be fair, it was actually the low EQ in the good Doom. Because it was the good Doom who should have been able to read the room. Say, don't keep on trying to convert him. Don't keep on proselytizing. You know you're a sociopath. You know he's a sociopath. Don't try to prove you're right. Let him be impressed by what you have and just say, if that's where you're at, that's where you're at.
That's an interesting wrinkle. Now,
and then don't show him where you have the ultimate nullifier hidden.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's why I say Doom is the worst in every universe. Even where he's the best version of Doom, he's still the worst. Okay, getting back to the Mandalorian. But this is the big reveal at the end. Is that so? Essentially, what happens is, Mayfield realized that Valen Hess is the commander of this base. He worked under Valen Hess. Now, truth be told, and this is of course Mayfield's nature, he doesn't want to put himself on the line. Because he says, is he going to recognize you? He says, I don't know, but he might. I don't want to take that risk. Because for Mayfield, it's not worth it to risk your own life when you don't have a reward.
Right. There's no ideal big enough to guide him to risk his own life. To him.
But when he actually sits with Valen Hess, because of course that's what happens, is that right now, and this is what happens, is he sees Din Djarin violate his most sacred oath. And you can see this because essentially the machine has to scan your face. And for what it's worth, of course, man, that's just weird that it's not looking for who you are, it's just making sure you're not someone you're not supposed to be here. And if it doesn't know who you are, it's like, well, I guess you're just a new recruit.
Right.
But to be fair, given that this...
But that's how the police work. They print you, or, they take your... If you don't have a warrant, nothing, you're good to go. Right? They're not, so...
I mean, yeah, well, the difference is that basically it's bad internet security. Right. I wish we had, NordVPN sponsoring us, because that would be a great lead-in to show how this is... We don't have any sponsors like those guys, so F them. Never use NordVPN, because they're not a sponsor. I know. Anyway, but the point is that, it's just looking to see if you're someone it doesn't want to have as a part of the story. But if you're okay, then it doesn't care who's accessing it. So he accesses, he gets the information, and he takes the helmet off. And in that moment, you're like, okay, he's saying, no living thing can see me, and it's always that spreading out what is the law? Does the law say this, or does the law say that? And if you think about any legalistic religion like Judaism, Islam, even Catholicism, there is this idea of, okay, there are canon lawyers, and we're going to say, what does the law actually say? And what does it mean? And what does it mean? And it's going to be like 4 different opinions no matter who you ask. And
right, because they're not really looking to find out what it means. They're looking to find out how I can possibly interpret this.
Well, they're looking,
to the benefit of some end. That's what they're looking to do.
I mean,
truth isn't their intent. Their intent is, how can my truth fit in the little spaces in between?
Or the counter argument, as a religious person, I will say, or the argument is, it's about looking beyond the letter of the laws written.
Oh, no. There's certainly intentions that go in that direction, but then there's intentions that go in the other direction.
Oh, exactly. Well, of course.
For example, you can't use the phone on the Sabbath, and then there's this thing that they have that it's a machine you can buy where the phone is always dialing, and then when you hit the button, you're actually stopping it from dialing. And there's all these little things that people do to skirt and those are not meant to, and lawyers, particularly if we're talking about lawyers and interpreting the rule of law, that usually becomes about how I can interpret the law to help me, because the words are there. We're not looking for the truth. What we're looking for is how can I use those words to paint my truth.
Which is the counter argument, which actually I think gives you that nice, again, that dichotomy between the Empire and the New Republic, whereas they both have laws and they both have rules. But, that's the thing, is if you go into an imperial court of law, it's not going to be justice, because the imperial court of law is not based on justice. It's based on rules. The Republic's court of law is based on the idea of justice. Now, that justice can be corrupted, certainly. It always has been. It always will be. That anything good will be corrupted. But if your goal is simply to corrupt, that is where the failure comes. If you come in saying the world is corrupt and so I will simply be corrupt, which is what essentially Valenhess says.
But he says more than that, though, doesn't he? Doesn't he say that it's not that he's being corrupt because he has no choice because the world is corrupt and that's the only way to manage a corrupt world? What he's saying is we're doing it for our benefit. Somebody's got to get on. And
well, yeah, it's not. And to be fair, that is its own form of. So let me put it to you this way. Let us say, within this force, within this universe, within this galaxy, there is a morality called the Force, and the Force's morality is the Force flows through all things. All life feels the Force. Ergo, all life is part of the Force. The moment you say, my control of the Force, meaning my life, is more important than all other lives, and then to say, my life as a part of a single pyramidal top life, meaning the Emperor, is more important, even as an esoteric concept, is more important than all other life. You are in a place where you are not honoring that Force. You are not honoring the existence of life. And that is the idea, is that if you are part of the Force and you are with the Force, then you must recognize the value of all of these beings.
But can't the Force be interpreted by the dark side as well? Isn't that just a different...
Well, the dark side, but that's the thing. There's not really a dark side and a light side of the Force.
No, that's what I mean. It's not, the Force isn't a morality. It's just something that's there. Can it not be used in dark ways as well? Does that make it a morality, or does it make it just an element to be used by us? And morality is a concept that only... So
when you talk about the light side and the dark side, what you're talking about is the 7 virtues and the 7 deadly sins, which was essentially a shorthand about what was a sin in medieval Europe. And so essentially what it is, everyone says, because say, hey, here's Christianity, go be good. So, okay, how do we do that?
So exactly. So what they're saying is the Force isn't inherently good.
No, the Force is inherently, so Force, good and evil are...
Our concepts.
Our concepts, yes. But when you talk about what the Force, what the connection of all things are, there are things that are going to fall on the side of betterment for living things and worsening for living things. So when you look at something like the 7 deadly sins, you'll look at gluttony. Now, does that mean that every time you have a good meal, you're being sinful? No. But if you make your entire purpose to simply eat a good meal,
or take more than you need, I think that's the metaphor.
Well, that's an aspect too. It's like, you look at Augustus Gloop. It's, that he takes from others. He eats and he eats and he eats. Although that's always a question about what it's really saying. I think mostly Roald Dahl doesn't like fat kids. Probably because he was a fat kid himself, but No,
because it's indicative of an indulgent nature that is not taking into account the things around you and only focusing it on selfish things. That's what it points to, and
and exactly that's the idea. If you are going to be this being that it is not, so being a glutton isn't sinful. Gluttony is a deadly sin, meaning it is a sin that can lead you towards death of your soul. And likewise, the virtues, which, I think are purity and piety and yada, 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 they are things that can lead you towards a virtuous life. But in fact, if they are taken to excess, will make you into one of these Bible thumpers who says, let's kill the whatever who's. Because I've decided they're not godly enough. And it's like, well, clearly that's not what was being said. You're just supposed to do this other thing. and find a balance. As we say, the whole point is to find the balance in the Force.
And I think most people are mistaken about the fact that you have to help the world find balance. You have no responsibility to do that. Your only responsibility is to find balance within yourself. If you can find everything else will be all right, don't worry about all these other things. Just find balance in yourself. I think that's the real lesson that nobody is seeing, nor the Jedis, nor the because like even the destructive part of nature has a purpose. You know what I mean? Forest fires come out, wipe out land so new trees can grow, yada yada, this sort of thing. Mass die-offs happen so other things can come and take their place. It's a natural part of life. So if we are here saying that, you know, the empire is taking over and that's an unnatural quote unquote thing that we need to rectify, maybe that's arrogant as well.
Well, here's what I'll say. The empire, so here's what I will say. The average person most likely embraces balance. Here's what I'll say. The Hutts probably embrace balance more than any other species in the galaxy, with possibly maybe the Tridactyls. And you see this with Jabba's interaction with Han, where he cuts Han all kinds of slack. Because he knows Han is a person. He's not trying to hurt Jabba. He's not trying to hurt anybody. He just wants to keep himself safe, keep other people safe. And he knows that, you know, because if you go back to that first episode 1, the whole thing is he dumped weapons. Who is Han bringing weapons to? He's bringing weapons to the rebellion, because that's the only other market for weapons. When you think about it, it's like there's a market for weapons. Who needs weapons? The Empire and the Rebellion. These are the two forces that need weapons. So probably some gangsters here and there, but you know, let's be honest. The big people buying weapons right now are the Rebellion and the Empire. The Empire, you don't need to drop the weapons you're bringing to the Empire. So when he dumps the weapons, it's because, which is what gets Jabba upset, because he disrupted the flow of trade, but more importantly, Jabba's selling weapons to the rebellion. Jabba is not saying the rebellion is good or the empire is good. He's saying, what is the flow of commerce? What is balance within my own life, and what is the balance in everyone's life? You know, because
the moral obligation is not on him. He's simply saying, hey, you speak, you tell me what you want, and I'll move goods along this way or that way. Exactly. This is not on me. This is the moral implications of this action are on you. I'm simply a facilitator.
Exactly. But then you have that moment when you are Mayfield and you realize maybe I am part of something that is bigger and badder. And maybe if we just leave, he kills the guy who he sees as the bad guy. But he knows that and here's the thing, his cynicism gives him the insight to know Valen Hess isn't the only villainous Nazi in the Empire.
So in that moment when he shoots that shot at the end, he's not worried about being the same as Valen Hess.
No, he is, well
no, because at that point
so what he's understanding is sometimes you need a Valen Hess, but you need a Valen Hess for good.
Right. So, in the end, when he makes the decision that, there is a good side and a bad side, that it's not the same. That's the point. So it's like when he's doing that, he's not doing it for self-aggrandizement. He's not doing it for the empire. He's doing it for the right reasons. He's doing it to save people. He's doing it for the right reasons. So that's the decision he makes. There is a good and bad. It's not all the same. And I'm choosing to be on the good side. So that makes me not the same as Hess when I'm blowing up these stormtroopers.
Exactly. Which, you know, I'm sure is cold comfort to the families of the stormtroopers, but
sure.
No, that's the thing. Well, but
you know, you chose to be there. This is, and it's not like any of those stormtroopers weren't destined to die within the next week. They're very expendable, so it's not really
No. They probably had at least a couple years. Got to get the whole first chance to rise.
That's generous. That's very generous. With the speed at which they're comfortable dying, I gotta imagine they sign a letter that's saying, if I die, my family gets off real well.
But that actually goes to one of my most fascinating aspects of this. and maybe this goes to that basic human supremacy of Star Wars. When they go through the village, and this is like an afterthought. When they go through the village and you get to see these people, they're just being oppressed, doesn't matter who's in charge, yada yada. Those are all humanoids. But what they call the pirates, who are not pirates, they're clearly people trying to blow up the stuff. Those are all clearly, I'm guessing, native aliens. Because no group of aliens would be this committed to just... Because it's not even like they're stealing this stuff.
Right.
Like, I could give they were stealing it. Like, I could give...
Right.
No, their goal was to blow it up. They're trying to make it too costly for the Empire to continue to occupy this planet. It was also interesting that there were no humans in that group. Obviously, because we had to kill them, and so we don't want to be killing the good guys we don't want to be killing humans after we're saved by the stormtroopers. Yeah. But it is an interesting dichotomy they made visually. Because what they had was they had a group of, I'm guessing, indigenous beings from this planet who are really waging this war. I'm guessing those humans are probably the humans that were brought here colonially and impressed into the mines.
Oh, wow. So what's interesting is we're sitting there thinking these humans are oppressed, but maybe they're part of the oppressors too. To these,
what they are is they're the settlers.
Right,
they're the people.
Is there a big difference to the natives?
To the natives, no, but to the settlers, certainly, because as a settler, and
but
you go back to Frog Lady, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No. I'm just frustrated because it always ends up becoming a thing about degrees.
Well, because everything's degrees. That's the thing about balance. It's not F or it's not 0 or 1. It's a lot of different levels. And how does it flow? As the river
flows, it's like, even though they are in a position where they're oppressing, it's like they have a plight as well. Everyone has a plight.
Well, of course, everyone has a plight because it's a galaxy where people are trying to control it. And if you have people trying to control things, it's always going to be difficult, rather than letting things flow.
The human settlers, it's not even almost all their fault, I guess. But
it's absolutely not their fault. Probably they settled, and they probably had a relatively peaceful existence with the natives.
And that's an interesting point, because you don't see the natives bombing these shantytown little settlements of humans.
No, of course not, because honestly, for all we know, and I don't want to call them aliens, the natives are were probably mining this stuff beforehand. It was probably a hub of this stuff. But the fact of the matter is, because you have a human-centric empire, they're going to want humanoids. Well, of course, they're all humanoids, but you're going to want mammalian humans doing your work, because at least because then you can exploit the racism. It's sort of why why the Irish were miners. It's like, well, if we get the Irish, then we know they won't at least steal the coal. Well, they might steal the coal, but at least we can control them, because we can say,
right.
Not that guy.
You have a built-in narrative that you can use to control these people.
Exactly. Well, this is the thing, and this is what the problem with the Empire is. As much as they may say they bring order, what they actually bring is oppression. Oppression is not the same as order. Oppression is,
there's some markers, statistically speaking, that they will affect the same way, but you're ignoring all the other markers.
Exactly. And this, I think, is the glory. Why The Mandalorian has really brought all of Star Wars into relief for the mass audience. I'm sure many writers did this long before. In all of the novels and comics and things. But right now, for everyone that doesn't read, like me,
or doesn't read Star Wars, or
doesn't read that thing. Yeah, exactly. If all I know is the movies, then I probably have a skewed view. But The Mandalorian is giving us this. And then when Mayfield blows it up, he decides that sometimes you have to blow up a Death Star. Not because every person on the Death Star is deserving of death, but because they're working towards something that is going to hurt people.
Right. And you're silently implicit in it. You're silently complicit in it. And so, it's like you kind of know what you signed up for.
Exactly.
And even though, like, once you're in that position, you go, what do you want me to do to try to stop the Death Star once it's starting to fire? They're going to kill me. No. You chose to end up there. You know, you made a silent contract that this is a possibility that you were comfortable with, even if you didn't realize it. That is the contract you signed.
Exactly.
And I'm fulfilling the end of that contract. So get ready.
Yeah. Okay. Any final thoughts? Final thought is that, sad. Very sad that Mayfield clearly died in that attack on the refinery, huh?
Terrible. He was a good rock breaker.
Yeah. Terrible business, that. Terrible business, that. Yeah. This is why I say, we haven't seen the last of Mayfield.
Yeah.
So I want to see what more of Mayfield is. I want to see, now that he made his own decision, and he really kind of picked a side that he never thought he would ever pick.
Mm.
Who is Mayfield when we get all of the 700 other Star Wars shows we're going to see? From Ashoka to the Bad Batch to Rogue Squadron and
Book of Boba.
Oh, Book of Boba Fett. Yeah. Oh, see, I can bet Mayfield's going to show up on Book of Boba Fett. Because they know each other. And to be fair, they're going to be... And, oh, man, wouldn't it be kind of cool to see Mayfield as the voice of reason and all of that?
Oh, yes. That's where he belongs. I think it's a perfect casting. And it seemed odd to me at first, too, when they brought him in the first season. I was just like, it felt... As much as I love Bill Burr, I was happy to see him do something. I was happy to see him act. But it just felt forced. It felt strange and weird, and now finally he sort of earned the right to be a part of this amazing world.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I have to say, sometimes it feels weird, like the people at Disney are just like really writing like 10 moves ahead of everybody when it comes to storytelling. It's like, no, we totally had to, which is. It's also weird because that's sort of how George Lucas sometimes feels. Because you know that George Lucas didn't write all 9 episodes at once. And you know that George Lucas didn't, do this thing. But you also get the feeling but he kind of knew where he wanted to go.
Right.
And you definitely feel like, they said, no, we're going to do this because we have a plan for this, which is actually interesting.
Or not. Maybe not necessarily a plan, but knowing what the right decision is. When being presented with a choice, being smart enough to see the implications of each and being like, no, I think we should go this way. Maybe it doesn't have to be an overarching plan that he saw from the beginning, but have the foresight in every fork in the road to know which the right one was.
Yeah, and along those lines, you have you have, I don't know if you've seen the behind the scenes Mandalorian season 2. But it's a really good documentary to watch, and they have a thing where Dave Filoni, when he talks to Katie Sackhoff, and says, "Yeah, just so you know, this will probably be live action at some point," or actually says, "Well, this might be the first before we go to a live action version of this character." So
he told her that back when he was doing the animated series.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
At least that's what she says. So,
Wow.
Yeah, because you know what? It's people who get involved in this juggernaut tend to think, you know what? It's sort of like, well, this could go on, so I should probably start planning for the future.
Yeah.
If you're going to just do it all in the one episode, say, no, we're done, aren't we? It's like, no, man, there's going to be more. This ain't Pixar. This is freaking... Pixar can do enclosed stories, but if you're in Star Wars, if you're in Marvel, you should be thinking ahead because someone's going to go ahead anyway. Which is actually why Lucas eventually made the prequels and everything because he said, well, otherwise someone's going to make it when I die, and if I die, I won't have any say in it. So at least if I do it now, I can actually have some say in it.
That's very interesting.
So. Yeah, well, and that's the attitude you have to have if you're ever lucky enough to be part of a big franchise. Realize that whatever you create, someone's going to tell that story after you're dead, unless you tell the story beforehand. So if you get the chance to write a story that you get to tell more than one story about, keep telling that story, because that's the only thing you will have as a legacy.
Dig it.
And that's my advice to you, and to you, Alan Moore, who never wants to revisit his old properties.
What is he responsible for?
Watchmen and many, many other things. He actually is a really great writer of amazing comic books and other literature, I'm sure. I only know his comic books. But, yes, and I've a feud with him. He doesn't know it yet, but that's okay. All right, Mozz, any final thoughts on tonight's episode?
No, it's just one of my favorite episodes so far. I think Bill Burr got to bring that Bill Burr-ness to the forefront, and it worked. And it was a great opportunity to have the kind of conversation that I've been struggling with since watching this show about empires and government in general and ruling and what does that really mean. And it was a great way for us to find a little bit of resolution in that. So I thought it was a great episode, an important episode, and one that I really, really, really enjoyed. And his acting was phenomenal. Like that moment where he's sitting and talking to Valenhas, and he has that moment of realization. You see it happen. He goes through those emotions, and you see him struggle with that decision and cross the barrier to make it. And makes that decision. Goes, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And you see him having that moment. He was so good. And even in like subtle little moments where Din Djarin comes walking out in the stormtrooper outfit, and he turns and he goes, oh, the shame. Look at you. Like it really felt like he was in that moment as just like a working stiff making fun of his coworker. So as an actor, surprisingly good for being just a comedian.
Yeah, he's pretty good. He may have a career here. Yeah.
And hearing him talk about the art of acting itself, in being very self-deprecating about it, in being very honest about his novice aptitude at it, and how seriously he takes learning, and how seriously he takes not wanting to look bad and not wanting to have not done his homework. That kind of thing. You only get that when you think you're just a young sort of person in a field. And he has that.
I'm going to be honest with you.
Honestly, and I appreciate it. I'm happy to see it.
Every good actor I've ever seen says that about themselves. Like, as I always say, to me, I can't say this, maybe that means I'm not a good actor, but the fact that I do love to watch myself on film. Every actor who says, no, I can't stand to watch myself on film. It's like, I get it. It's like, well, that's very impressive, but like to me, I even love my bad performances. It's
right.
Like, no, but I love me because I'm me and I'm cool.
Right.
But, a lot of people...
I can be critical, but I can still appreciate it.
Yeah, but, that's the thing. I think a good sense of self-deprecation, the best tool you can have as an actor, is just realize you're not that good at this. And that's actually going to give you this... But that's going to give you the sense to be a human, because you know what? As every human isn't that good at this. Yeah. And that's the key to acting.
And the other thing I heard him say was like somebody was sort of telling him how well he was doing as an actor, and he sort of brushed it off. He goes, listen, like the people who are like these character actors that can be somebody else, those are the ones that are the really good actors. I'm just really playing a version of myself in every scene. I'm just playing a version of myself. But in that way, he's connecting with how he would honestly react in an emotion. And he's using that relevance to bring it to the scene. So it's not like a prescribed thing. This is how you're supposed to act, so you pretend to act that way. He's really going through the work of the emotional steps you take to get to a decision. And that is a really interesting thing, that he's finding that moment. And it's because he doesn't think he's that good that he's doing the work to be that good. And that's really, really awesome.
And the truth is that every character actor, that's exactly what they do too. They just are good with accents.
Interesting.
If you're good with accents, then you can be a character actor and you can work forever. But really, that's the main difference. But in the same, every actor is just a version of himself. It's just whether or not you can do accents.
Right. And he thinks that
Edward Norton, he's good at accents, but he's really just a version of himself.
Yeah, he just can't get rid of that Boston accent.
No, actually, I think Edward Norton does.
No. I was talking about Bill Burr. He's just
Bill Burr, yeah.
He can't get rid of that Boston accent, so he has to pretend to be himself.
Neither can Ben Affleck, but he's doing okay. You just gotta find or Arnold Schwarzenegger. You just gotta find a lot of. Says, do you need a guy with an Austrian accent? Because I can do that.
Yeah.
And you know what? People say, you know what? Do it. Do it the Austrian accent. We'll go for it, and it works. Mozz, I got to say, I do notice that you don't wear headphones during these, and maybe it's because you don't have the best quality headphones.
No.
When you do these shows, which you could get if you just go over to tweakedaudio.com, use the coupon code Southgate, and get a discount on some really high quality audio equipment for your ears. However, if that's not your best use of your time, you can always go over to hunterkiller.com and get your brain stimulated by what is essentially an escape room delivered to your house, where you get a bunch of clues delivered, and you have to help the character. We hope she's not a real person, because that would be sad, because there's a lot of murders going on. But you can help Michelle Gray solve a cold case. And again, you can use the coupon code Southgate on checkout and get a discount on that as well. Likewise, if none of that interests you, you can always go down to our show notes, click on the Amazon link, go to Amazon.com, buy almost anything in the world you want, because it's Amazon. And it's going to cost you nothing. It helps out the show, and that's always a good thing. And while you're there, you can check out Pod Life, the book, a book written by members of the Southgate Media Group family, at least they were at the time of the writing, and learn about podcasting. It's available in both a Kindle download and a hard copy book, which is always nice. And if anyone does any of that, or if you do any of that, Mozz, how would you like people to tell you about it so you can share that experience?
Well, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com, or you can find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way that Mozz and Poz once did at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And, of course, follow me on the Twitter as I live tweet when it comes back sometime next year, I'm sure, on Monday nights at 7 p.m. DuckTales, woohoo, the final season. Nope, it's not over yet. It's the final season, but it's not over yet. At Charlie Esser, that's CharlieEsser. Look for the two E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing!
Thank you, Mozz. All right, ladies and gentlemen. All right, me hearties. Thank you once again for joining us for Super Connectivity. No, that's not the show we're on right now. Thank you once again for joining us on Full Stream Ahead. Arg. I forgot what show he was on.